You're listening to the IMT Show with Mike Sims. Now here is your host.
Well, I am very happy today to have Arthur J.W. Northrup, Jim, and he has wrote a number of short stories and books, like Fishing with My Father, the Brainography Manual, The Gold Slaves, Total Amnesia, and I am really thrilled to have you on here. Thank you for being on here, Jim.
That's great to be here.
Well, how did you start? How did you get into all this?
Boy, all of this has been coming for about 20, at least 20 years. And some of the books have just been an ongoing project, but I've always enjoyed writing, and I always thought I had a real unique viewpoint, something
Exactly.
that is like different and not conflictive with other viewpoints, but something that's kind of like, well, what if,
Right, exactly. That's good.
And I like to write about stuff. I also like to write about some of my crazy personal adventures. I mean, for instance, I wrote a short story. I have a number of them on my website, but one is running a marathon with the runs. And I guess you can kind of understand what's the context of that story.
Sure.
But that was one of the craziest things I ever did. But I've always been totally into the outdoors. Me and my father had the greatest relationship ever as far as fishermen.
Awesome.
And we were fly fishermen. And I did write a very heartfelt story about that. My relationship with my father, who incidentally passed away about 9 months ago.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah. And I actually took some of his ashes and I dropped him in one of the high mountain lakes up there that we had hiked to many, many moons ago when he was 74 years old, which is just, he hiked over a 11,000 foot pass to get there. And I'm 64 and I did that same, hike, and it about killed me. But that was, it was a really great, I've definitely written some stories about that, and most people really like them.
That's awesome. And to hike over a mountain is that's quite a feat.
Oh, I've been doing it since I was a kid. There are many mountains in Utah that I literally hike up over the top of just to see what's up there, and
wow.
It's amazing, the view.
Imagine
seeing the world from kind of a remote viewpoint, not caught up in all the madness of the day-to-day life, and but just kind of looking at it from a viewpoint above it, and it kind of makes all the problems look a lot different. They're smaller.
changes perceptions, doesn't it?
Definitely does.
Wow, that's incredible. So it's so you've been writing since the mid '80s, and
yeah, and I actually wrote the book The Gold Slaves. That was my first novel. It's been, I tried to get it published, and went through the whole nightmare of being an author, never having any works, and trying to find a publisher whose agency that's really willing to take it on, and went through a bit of that, and the years go by. And, you know, I that wasn't my full-time job, luckily, or I'd be broke. But
Yeah, I
at
understand.
the time, you know, and so just lately, it's kind of in the last 5 years, I've put a lot of attention onto book sales and writing and things like that. You know, like in my old age, you know.
Well, it sounds like we've had a lot of the similar experiences in publishing or writing.
Yeah, it's interesting going online and listening to all the authors, and you know, it's you know, the first big barrier, of course, is, you know, they say, well, I'm trying to write a book, I don't know how to get started, how
Right.
do you do it? And then they do that, and they finish their book, and they go, wow, this is so cool. Now the real work starts. How can you profit off making, you know, how can you get your book out there that you've been put your blood, sweat, and tears into? That
Right.
the even the more difficult problem, unless you're some kind of celebrity who, you know, just gets a book deal.
Sure.
Yeah, it's how to sell it, how to sell yourself.
Yeah. And even then, I mean, I worked with celebrities, helping them consult on their books, and and some of them, it's hard to peddle their books, even when you are famous.
Yeah.
It's just it's a tough industry. It takes a lot of marketing and a lot of effort.
Yeah, when you really look at it, I mean, how many people do you know that said, oh, well, I've kind of written a book, you know, or I want to write a book? It's probably every other person in this country, you know.
Right.
Everybody, you know, I mean, very lot of people, and there's so much out there.
Yeah.
But you know,
It's like 1.2 million books published every year in English.
yeah.
So it's a lot.
So somehow you gotta stand out, and you know, you gotta work at it,
Yep.
and that's why I'm doing this.
Fantastic. So what's the Gold Slaves about?
Well, the original concept, and you know, if you look at my website, we have this name for me. I'm a cabin philosopher, which is, you know, most people look at that and go, what the heck does that mean? But it's kind of the idea of someone getting into a nice serene area, you know, and outdoors, and disconnected from the world around them, where they can just write, you know.
Right.
And you can come up with some interesting, you know, ideas. And the idea for the Gold Slaves was, I just thought, you know, what if there was a civilization that lived inside the earth, right, and did not know there was such a thing as an outside.
Interesting.
And just imagine the viewpoint. Well, the universe is solid, and you basically are digging through the universe, you know. And they turn out to be, my whole thing is, what if, you know, at some point they actually walked out of this cave and went, what on earth is this? You know, a mind-blowing thing.
Right.
You know, so that's just how the story began. The thought of somebody walking out and going, oh my God, there's a whole new world that I had no clue that was going on.
Wow.
So then I had to go, well, why would they be under, and how would they eat? You know,
Right.
how could, you know, they can't grow anything under there. And what are they there for? And I built a whole story around it. And it turned out to be a mining company that had a very greedy guy who discovered this mother lode mines, and literally brainwashed these people to think that they were under the ground.
Wow.
And so they offer their gold to the gods, you know.
Wow.
And the gods grant them food, you know, and this, their entire philosophy and religion is based upon this, you know.
Mm.
You must follow the golden paths through the universe and donate this to the gods, and the gods will provide you with food. And so you look at that and you go, well, that's pretty, boy, what ignorant people, you know, how silly can this religion be, you know? But from their viewpoint, it makes total sense.
Absolutely.
And
That's an excellent story idea.
yeah, and I made these people underneath the ground to be much, much saner and more spiritual and
Right.
better off than the people on the surface, than the greedy miners up above who just love to profit in their debauched, druggy society up above. So it was a contrast you would never think, you know.
Right.
And it kind of, at least hopefully, can kind of get you looking at your own world and going, wow, you know, okay, they were trapped under the earth. We're kind of trapped on top of an earth. I mean, barriered by space, you know. So, and it gets into a lot of that stuff, and really, hopefully, get your viewpoint changing a bit, you know.
Yeah. Well, that I think you brought up some important psychology there, and people forget about things like that, and that they complicate their lives too much with things they think is important.
Yeah, I mean, the big feature here was the guy who got out, you know, of the mines, kind of went one day, what is our religion for? Well, it's spiritual, right? You
Right.
want to be happy. You want spiritual things. So you want to be happy. You want to be, love your fellow man, enjoy others. Why is everything we're doing to give gold to gods? What does this have to do with my spiritual life? Nothing.
Right.
Yeah, and it kind of, you know, it parallels ours, you know. Okay, well, I need to, you know, especially in these days, I got to take care of my body, and everything's a threat, and I got to be careful and safe, and in my house and in my car, and, you know, and what does this have to do with your happiness?
Right. Distractions.
Yeah. So,
Interesting.
so that's a good, you know, thought of what I kind of, the way I see things. I kind of like to extrovert out of it and look at it from outside, because honestly, you look at politics these days, it's just this fighting over silly issues that are,
Yeah.
you know, and everybody's just trying to be right.
Yeah. I've always, you know, personally, I've always said that politics, it makes hypocrites out of everybody.
Yeah.
Because everybody's got all these viewpoints from both sides, and then they make up stuff or hear stuff that they want to hear, and they're galvanized with their belief, and nobody's really listening to each other.
Right. There's
You
no
know?
attempt whatsoever
Yeah.
for people to universally take a viewpoint outside of our little world here, and actually make some decisions based on the most good for the most, you know, for all
Yeah.
of us, you know, not just your freaking political party or even your country, you know, what's the
Right.
best for all of us.
Right. I've just never understood why people hurt each other and hate each other over what politicians do. You know, what's they got to do with your neighbor? You know?
Yeah, especially considering the intention of a politician is probably to get reelected, you know, or defend their party's platform.
Right.
You know, especially now, it's just, good God, anything that is for Trump is against Democrats. Anything for Democrats is against Trump. You know, they're not even trying to decide what's right. It's just,
Right. Yeah. It's all about labels.
yeah. So that can bring me to my next book.
Ah,
This is a perfect segue.
there you go.
And uh, so, and as I said, I kind of have an outside viewpoint of the whole thing, or an original viewpoint of the whole thing. And yeah, when we get into politics and this kind of stuff, we get people that are obviously not computing right. I mean, if you look at a brain, you know, obviously it's not giving you good answers. I mean, honestly, I mean, shouldn't people be trying to figure out what's best for everybody, you know, and stop fighting amongst themselves? So what I did is I took the attitude that, okay, you take a calculator, you know, and you put in the number 2 + 2 equals. What will the answer be? It will be 4, right? Now, this is not up for debate, but it is a mechanical thing that happens, right? It isn't, the calculator has no awareness. It doesn't care about the answer, or a computer doesn't care. So what if the calculator, you get 2 + 2 equals, and it comes out 23? Well, you go, well, there's a bug in the calculator, right?
Right.
There's a bug there. So I compared this to the brain, which are modern scientists, and science is pretty materialistic, right? They're not interested in the spirit or the soul or anything like that. Interested in material. I mean, their viewpoint in general is that man is an animal. He's a brain. I mean, all you hear is that people saying, "I am a brain," right? My brain tells me, you know, well, my brain says it's right or wrong, but so a brain is a mechanical thing, right?
Right.
It thinks, I guess, it thinks in neurons and hardwired neural paths that have been created through evolution, through time, and they are set. Well, so why do we get wrong answers? If mankind and his brain has completely dominated the earth, you know, he's caused over the environment completely, has incredible technology, but behavior-wise, boys, there's a lot of 2 + 2 = 24 going on.
Right.
Right. I mean, obviously. So one day, me and my girlfriend were sitting in front of just a store watching people walk by, and we were kind of mocking them, which is kind of mean, but and we started placing disorders on them, like, oh, that guy obviously has I am right disorder, you know. You've read the psychiatric manual that has all these disorders listed out. So we started listing out disorders, and it gave me a great idea. Well, there's something going on in the brain, and it's got a short circuit in it, and we can call each one of these short circuits in the brain a disorder, you know. So we come up with things like Republican disorder. How about that? And it's a disorder of you are stuck with a certain type of platform of speaking or thinking, and you cannot think anything else. This is a brain disorder, right? A physical brain disorder. It's something in the brain, you know. So I created cures for this. This is a total satire. It's a total satire. But instead of giving people drugs, which is insane, because why would you drug an entire brain when just a certain section of it was giving wrong answers? And it's a satire called Brainography. And I list out a whole bunch of disorders, like I am right disorder. Obviously, people have that.
Right.
You know, people are hung up on being right. And so then I list the cure for it. So now we got that one out of the way. Now we've got generality disorder. Generality disorder is when you label an entire people or subject based on just a few facts. Okay, so there's a cure for that. There's a cure for murder disorder. There's a cure for, I make some real funny ones like Trump disorder and Obama disorder and Biden disorder. And what I do is describe these disorders and what to do to handle them. You know, marriage disorder is probably a big one for people. But I have an entire manual on these disorders.
Interesting.
And it takes it from a purely, it takes it to the
Thank you for listening to the IMT show with Mike Sims. The views expressed by guests are their own and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. The IMT show is an opinion show and not to be taken as serious personal, legal, tax or financial advice. It is meant as entertainment only. IMT show, Mazarov or Mike Sims is not responsible for ad content. For more information on show schedules and content visit www.mazarov.net/IMT.